Our top story is the new release of this literal final chapter in the special counsel, Jack Smith's January 6 coup probe. Smith's 137-page report released today on the, quote, efforts to interfere with the lawful transfer of power following that 2020 election. This Smith report follows the precedent of the Mueller report, a major legal document which recounts a crime spree by Trump allies who faced a legal reckoning. Like that report, this new one matters today. In contrast to that report, however, the Smith report comes after Donald Trump's recent re-election, and there are legal rules ending the prosecution that the former defendant Trump faced. So we begin right there on that point. The most striking assertion in this brand new report, which came in the conclusion as the final sentence of this new Smith report today, is the formal statement that Smith had enough evidence to convict Trump at trial. That is a key takeaway, and I'm going to go through several takeaways with you right now. We encourage you to read excerpts of the whole report, but right now I've got the key parts. The report refers to the rule against prosecuting a sitting president. Everyone knew that would kick in if the defendant, Donald Trump, won. And so the report states, but for Mr. Trump's election, the admissible evidence was sufficient to obtain a conviction at trial. A striking conclusion from a respected prosecutor backed by the DOJ. It reinforces just how close Trump came to that trial, which may have led to conviction. While, as always, we responsibly note that as a defendant, Trump, the former defendant, was legally presumed innocent. Smith made precedent with the first federal indictment of an ex-president. Today, he stands by it with a new precedent about that now former defendant turned president-elect. So I can tell you this report does not offer one sweeping story, unlike, say, the original coup indictment of former defendant Trump. It's not supposed to. And I'll explain it very clearly. Under law, every special counsel writes a final report explaining their decisions to charge or not through this process and to Congress. And so today we're learning some new things about the inner workings of Smith's long secretive, private, confidential, whatever word you want to use, an investigation that we didn't see into very much. That includes legal factors about Trump's lies and deceit, which DOJ assessed in how it pursued and charged him, finding that Trump had a corrupt purpose to, quote, ensure no one other than himself was certified as the president, even though Biden won. And the report cites evidence that Trump had these admissions. He knew he'd lost. And prosecutors were ready to show jurors how Trump was even declaring victory before the actual results came in days later.
We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. As far as I'm concerned, we already have won it.
False. And that was incriminating, declaring a false win before the votes were even counted all. But that alone isn't a crime. The report explains how that deceit, which you just heard, is one element of what prosecutors must prove. And that they state in the report it animated these deceptive means and independently criminal means later taken in Trump's failed bid to steal the election, which infamously took the plot right into Congress on January 6th, trying even to give a fraudulent elector slate to Mike Pence. And that's before any of those Trump allies stormed the Capitol and the horrors we saw afterward. Now, that was bad. It was mostly secret at the time, that elector fraud they were trying to kick over to Pence. But the report shines a light on the question, legally, how bad was it? What if you listen to people who say that was more symbolic, fight to the end, that it was, quote, hardball politics? Or was it more like blatant ballot stuffing, the kind depicted in political cartoons like this, which decry illegal vote stealing by any party? This from an 1880s Harper's Magazine. Or here's a modern political cartoon that imagined threats at the literal ballot, generated by AI, by the way. So the canvas evolves, but these type of election threats endure. And this is news tonight because I have a new answer from Jack Smith himself, noting that while they were not in the back room altering the vote tallies or stuffing falsified ballots into the ballot boxes, like those proverbial cartoons I showed you, quote, Trump and the co-conspirators nonetheless sought the same result, to cast aside legitimate votes, depriving citizens of their right to vote and have their votes counted. Jack Smith's prosecutor saying this was criminal ballot stuffing, just on an even larger scale. And so that right there are already just a few highlights. If you're counting, spend just about 5 minutes, and that's a lot of material that we are learning about how Jack Smith and his team approach this. Things we didn't know, things we would have loved to know from a journalistic or legal sense even just months ago. And then there are the lawyers. Donald Trump has long demanded that he wants to find his own Roy Cohn in government. That's quite a claim because the infamously discredited, disbarred lawyer has earned a place in legal histories about how not to practice law, how not to go to court. Today's report adds more incriminating material against two of Trump's lawyers in this whole matter. And they have faced discipline, not unlike Roy Cohn. And they're referred to as unindicted co-conspirators, Giuliani and Eastman, and both facing bar discipline, civil remedies over these related efforts from trying to steal the race. Now, the report is not designed and is not really trying to develop a new case on them. But remember, I mentioned how the law requires that Smith, any special counsel, explain some of the approaches that got them here. And so today, that actually required more material on those two discredited lawyers, to say the least, because of Trump's effort to hide alleged crimes behind them. So that's like the Roy Cohn move I'm mentioning. And this came up, remember, all the way back in the Mueller report when another Trump lawyer, Michael Cohen, had to pay and go to prison for now convicted crimes that were determined on Trump's behalf, and it was farmed out to a different office, and you might remember some of that history. Fast forward to now, and Smith's report explains why prosecutors were ready to defeat Donald Trump's attempted lawyer or counsel defense, noting Smith and the DOJ thought they would beat any advice of counsel defense because these kind of so-called lawyers were actually acting as accomplices to the crime. And to support that, the report notes Giuliani backing the original plot to declare victory before there was a winner called and then presenting knowingly false claims to state legislatures. Today's report, though, features him speaking in a way we've rarely heard. He rebuts the MAGA attacks that claimed this was some sort of politicized witch hunt. Smith rebutting claims that he took orders from Biden as, in a word, laughable. All right. As another wordsmith, Nas, might say, it's comedy, it's hilarious, look in the mirror, tell me the times ain't the scariest. Point being, it may be laughable, but it is not funny when the stakes are this high and the times this intense. So we've just reported out the especially key points from this new report. At over 130 pages, we've got actually more in the rest of this program with Andrew Weissman and David Kelly coming up. But before I bring those experienced prosecutors in, I want to try to tie this together, especially if you're at home going, all right, after all this, this is what we got, and I guess Trump got away, and the anchorman, Ari, is telling me details, but what's the point of all this? Where are we landing? And I will do my level best to tell you the facts and the evidence, totally separate from what people, myself included, might think in opinion about it. Let's go to the evidence. Here's what you need to know. This probe is now closed. Its federal indictments of those several plots that we have tracked with regard to former defendant Trump are now formally dismissed. We've shown you this chart over the years. We legally update it now with this news. That's an outcome that Smith certainly views as incomplete, given a plan to bring the case to trial where he says he had the evidence to convict Trump. That's where we are. The federal January 6 coup probe is over with this report today. And to hear Jack Smith tell it, they cracked the case. They found the guy. They know who they say did it. Even though, as I mentioned, legally he's presumed innocent, they say they know who did it. They got him. They indicted him. And according to Smith, they were ready to give him his day in court until his lawyers, political allies, and a Supreme Court he helped appoint delayed that day in court, that reckoning, that trial, past an election that he then won, which kicked in the legal restrictions that were not a secret and not a conspiracy, quote unquote. They were something everyone knew about. And that's part of the ending. The related DOJ January 6 probe, which is the largest in U.S. history, has put many people behind bars. It has a strong record of legal accomplishment. Some of them are hoping for Donald Trump to break them out of jail with pardons. Many of them have served a chunk of their time. And then Trump's own lawyers and aides, as you can see from a reckoning chart where we can barely fit all of the different consequences, including state cases that Donald Trump cannot and never has the power to pardon, they've been punished for their involvement, from disbarment to convictions, prison time for 2 Trump former aides who stonewalled the House Jan 6 probe. The system may be a long way from full accountability, as always, depending on who defines it. But again, I said I'd show you the evidence. It is a very long way from no accountability for anyone involved, including the leaders, the lawyers, who Smith calls accomplices. We've seen careers and lives upended, and a warning, as Smith wrote, would be for the next would-be co-conspirators to think twice before you end up like any of these individuals. So you take it all together, that's what's happening. You could hear almost through the pages of this report the stern, fair judgment of Jack Smith and his team. If they are disappointed in the outcome, they are not putting spin on the ball. There are other parts of the report I'm going to get to, including their explanation of why they didn't use the Insurrection Act on Donald Trump, and the Donald Trump team's response, which includes, interestingly, a shout-out to none other than Bob Mueller, which makes you know it's a funny kind of news day. But when you look at this all together, something is happening. It's not what Jack Smith wanted. He made that clear. It's not what a lot of other people think justice should require. But it is a heck of a long way from January 7th, when there had been no accountability for anyone, no reckoning for Donald Trump and his aides, and remember, no indictment of any former president ever in American history.